हाँ कैमरे
Good evening, friends. Meeting after a big gap. That's why there is little bit confusion regarding the how many aphorisms we have finished last lecture. I think we are meeting after 2nd of the February, and there is a gap of 4 days in between. So we'll start with new session. We have started discussing about the basically drug proving part, and which is very important aspect of the homeopathic. In fact, in homeopathy, when we prove the drugs on healthy human beings, a unique thing which Hahnemann have started and experimented. Before Hahnemann, there was only one person, Mr. Haller, who has introduced this, but
वेळ लागेल चला आता लगेच
not experimented till that period. So basically, when when we started this understanding of the drug proving, Hahnemann explained many things regarding it. He explains over there that in such types of cases, what one should do. And basically, this is the most important aspect which he explains, that the sick individual should not be utilized as a prover, because you get a mixed proving over there. The original features of the patients along with the medicinal reaction, and that's why you cannot get a thorough proving. It's if you want to prove any remedy, it should be proved on healthy human being. That is very important thing which he has explained. And then he explains that every remedy with which we can understand that it has a medicinal property, it might happen because of the accidental proving. Sometimes accidental poisoning itself is one of the greatest source where you can know, yes, this remedy has the basically the medicinal property. Because when we define any drug substance, we consider that any substance which has a capacity to alter the human state of health at both sensations and functions, that substance is called as a medicine or a drug, and which we can use on the basis of law of similars, then it becomes a remedy. So this aspect already we have discussed, and he has given a big footnote, as well as when one more big aphorism in order to explain how these medicinal substances are noted, that the poisonous substances which in crude form affects the human life, those substances when given in the minute doses or in the infinitesimal doses work as a remedy, and the action how it produces, that's what we have discussed in last lecture. We have to go ahead with the 111, and we have to understand basically all those aspects. So we'll go with the aphorism number 111. The agreement of my observations on the pure effects of medicines with these older ones, although they were recorded without reference to any therapeutic object, and the very concordance of these accounts with others of the same kind by different authors, must easily convince us that medicinal substances act in morbid changes they produce in the healthy body according to a fixed eternal laws of nature, and by virtue of these are enabled to produce certain reliable disease symptoms, each according to its own peculiar character. The last sentence of the aphorism is very important, where he has explained it in italics, and it has a significance. So if you prove aconite, even though it is in infinitesimal doses, that means it is in potentized form, either 30 potency or 200 C potency or 1000 C potency, whatever it may be. And if you have given the aconite stimulus, it is a stimulus because it doesn't contain the material medicine. And when you give this aconite for the proving, person reacts specifically to that stimulus, and that's why the reactions of the individuals are very specific to aconite. If you give aconite stimulus and patient will reflect as a belladonna reaction, it never happens. It is very specific to the stimulus which you have utilized for the purpose of proving. So every remedy has a different proving. So we have ample remedies in our materia medica, and every remedy which is included in our materia medica is ultimately a product of human proving. And that's why every remedy works as a different stimulus. And that's why whatever the totality you get after giving that stimulus to the healthy human being, that totality is totally various as compared to the another remedy. And that's why they are very specific to that specific remedy. So Naxwamika, if you give Naxwamika for the proving, the person will react to Naxwamika stimulus. He will not react like that. A stimulus is given of Naxwamika and he will react like sulfur. It's not like. It's very specific. It doesn't contain even though material medicine. It never acts as a primary action. It is only a secondary reaction which develops against that stimulus. But still, that reaction is very specific to that specific stimulus. So every remedy has its own typical action against which the reaction develops in homeopathy. And that's why we have a thorough materia medica. We have every remedy proved in such a manner. We have ample details. We have everything, every functional symptom, every subjective symptom recorded in our materia medica, and those are the results of that specific stimulus given to the provers. When we think about the proving, we used to prove it on all varieties, both sexes of different ages, at different places, at different times, with a different potency. And that's why we have a thorough materia medica which is there. We have ample reactions which are developed because of that. And those are very specific to that specific stimulus. And that's why last sentence which he mentions over there, they produce in a healthy body according to the fixed eternal laws of nature, and by virtue of these are enabled to produce certain reliable disease symptoms, each according to its own peculiar character. So that's why every remedy has its own peculiarity. If you prove aconite, aconite will show typical aconite presentation. The patient shows a panic reactions. Patient shows a high irritability. That irritability is like agony. Fear is like agonizing. Person is not in a stable position. He's absolutely restless. So those reactions are all functional. And those are very specific to aconite. But at the same time, if you prove arsenic with another person, arsenic will not show like aconite panic. Arsenic is absolutely restless, anxious. He becomes absolutely anxious. He is frightful, but the fright is not expressed like aconite. It is the fright which expresses through the anxiety. That is the difference. If you prove chamomilla, the chamomilla will show typical chamomilla irritability. The child becomes irritable. The child becomes functional, has a functional manifestation. The child shows irritability, restlessness, never wants to be carried, always wants to, or sometimes always wants to be carried. Both things, he's never get absolutely rest. That is a nagging child which you will get, which irritates your mind. That variety. So every remedy has its own specific actions. So if you prove the Sina will show typical Sina features. And this is very important. This is what the uniqueness of the homeopathic proving, and which we can get thoroughly when we proved it on healthy human being. And that data, which is totally recorded in the proper manner, the way patient has presented, in the same manner it has been explained, that has been collected over there. So this is what explained over there. So every remedy acts as a separate stimulus, and which works as a separate stimulus and which shows its own typical proving symptoms over there, like the specific, in the way the specific eternal laws of nature works. Then he starts explaining about the another aphorism. 112 actions of medicines. There are the actions are mentioned. In those older prescriptions of often dangerous effects of medicine ingested in excessively large doses, we notice certain states that were produced, not at the commencement, but towards the termination of these sad events, and which were of an exactly opposite nature to those that first appeared. These symptoms, the very reverse of primary action, or the proper action of the medicines on the vital force are the reactions of the vital force of the organism, its secondary action, right from aphorism 62 to 67, of which, however, there is seldom or hardly ever the least trace from the experiments with moderate doses on healthy bodies, and from small doses, none whatever. In the homeopathic curative operation, the living organism reacts from these only so much as is requisite to raise the health again the normal healthy state. That is aphorism number 67. Now he has mentioned again the primary and secondary actions over there. So when you use any medicine in the material form, that is what is called as a large doses. For example, you know a good drug for paracetamol. If you give paracetamol to the patient in, for example, 500 milligram or 650 milligram, what it used to produce? It used to produce a diaphoresis. It is the directly action of the medicine on the healthy body, and it used to induce the sweating over there. So this medicine is used as an antipyretic in allopathy. What happens? The patient has a presentation of fever as a result of a dynamic disease, and manifestation expresses on the bodily element in the form of fever. The cause of the disease lies in dynamic plane. You give the material medicine. The material medicine will never act at the dynamic plane. It remains as it is. And what happens only is after giving that paracetamol in 500 milligram or 650 milligram, in its primary action, it induces sweating. So once sweating is induced, the fever disappears. The person feels very good. That is the primary action of the medicine on the human body, which is happening over there. Because of which the person is absolutely better for time being. And when the action vanishes, that is after 6 hours or 8 hours of the half-life of that paracetamol in that individual, the body reacts back. The vital force starts reacting back. And it reflects exactly opposite state to that happened in the primary action. So now what happens? The body reacts in such a way that the original symptoms of the disease, that is the fever, reacts back and fever comes, and it is more than that than earlier phase. So what has happened? The primary action is now reflected in the form of secondary counteraction. And this happens quite commonly when you use the larger doses. So every larger dose given to any patient, it used to produce two types of action. The primary action, that is the direct action of the medicine on the human being, and the reaction of the human being against the primary action is called as the secondary action, which is exactly opposite to the primary action, called as counteraction. And these two happens when you use the larger doses. But when you give the homeopathic medicine on the basis of law of similars, where the doses are so minute that doesn't have a strength to produce directly a primary action, or even though if it is produced, it has a very less effect. It is so minute. So there will be no strong reaction as happens with the secondary counteraction. But here, directly a state gets changed. It is reflected back, and the original symptoms, the original disease is vanished under the action of that medicine, and what remains is the medicinal disease that vanishes itself when the vital force reacts back, it becomes healthy. So original disease state of disease vital force now becomes healthy because there is no more natural disease, and it rebounds back against the medicinal action, and person becomes healthy. The called as secondary counter curative action explained in aphorism number 67. So these are the two things which happens. And for that purpose, when we prove the drugs on the healthy human beings, it is advisable not to prove it in material doses or in larger doses, but better to prove them in the infinitesimal doses or very minute quantity. For that purpose, he explains over there in this aphorism the same actions which he has already defined while defining the primary action and secondary actions in the aphorism number 62 to 67. Those he has again recollected over there in order for the purpose of proving. And when you do proving, your medicine should not be given in larger doses. The purpose behind that explaining is that one should not use the large doses, because we are not interested in primary action, we are interested in reaction of the human being. Aphorism number 113, and this aphorism one has to understand. The only exceptions to this are the narcotic medicines. Narcotics means, anyone knows what is narcotic? Which produce sleep. Okay, anyone? Which acts on the human brain, producing the depression of the human brain, sleep producing. The only exceptions to this are the narcotic medicines, as they in their primary action take away sometimes the sensibility and sensations, sometimes the irritability. It frequently happens that in their secondary action, even from moderate experimental doses on the healthy bodies, an increased sensibility or greater irritability is observable. So narcotic drugs always produces a temporary palliative effect. For example, person is sleepless, and if you give opium, so if you would have given opium to the person in material dose, yes, immediately the person becomes sleepy and he get a very good sleep. When the action vanishes, next day, before, if he never takes opium again, he becomes sleepless. Because this happens quite commonly, because this secondary action, the counter action, is always there when you use the narcotics. But same narcotics, when you have given in immaterial doses, like a homeopathic doses. For example, we have the same drug opium in our materia medica. If you give opium to the persons, you get alternating symptoms. It is the remedy, most important remedy, where you get many alternating symptoms. Maximum alternating symptoms are there in opium. Sleepiness is alternating with sleeplessness. Or there is a diarrhea alternates with constipation. Painfulness alternates with painlessness. Maximum alternating symptoms you get in opium when brewed in infinitesimal doses or in potentized form. But in material doses, it produces its direct action, and exactly opposite secondary counteraction develops later on. So when you are choosing your medicines, one must know how to give the doses. And for that purpose, he is giving all those things which already he has mentioned in the while discussing the actions of medicines. Okay. So the person who becomes calm after taking some tranquilizer, when the action vanishes, he becomes more irritable. More irritation at the level of mind happens. He becomes more anxious, more fearful. And this is what happens when you use the tranquilizers in cases of the psychological patients. For example, in paranoid states, if you start any medicine and if you stop, you'll find that they becomes more aggressive. These are the things which happens because larger doses always produces palliation followed by an aggravation in the secondary counteraction. And last aphorism, which we'll finish in today's session, is the 114. With the exception of these narcotic substances, in experiments with moderate doses of medicines on healthy bodies, we observe only their primary action. That is, those symptoms wherewith the medicine deranges the health of the human being and develops in him a morbid state of longer or shorter duration. So whatever may be the medicine which if you give to the patient, you're going to find it out the primary action if you are given it in material doses. You have the aconite. in your treasury. You have the rush tox in your treasury. You have the naxomica in your treasury. And these are the medicines. If you give in the material doses, what will happen? If you give 4 ounces of naxum, 4 ounces of aconite to the patient, 4 ounce mother tincture, what will happen? Anyone? आपण समजा aconite दिलं, एक 4 अंश प्यायला दिलं, what will happen? Aconite mother tincture. I am telling you aconite mother tincture. I am not telling you aconite in potentized form. Aconite is the poison. Why it is called as a poison? Because in material doses, it used to affect the human body in such a manner, many a times, it directly produces a death. It acts on the heart, it acts on the nervous system, and produces its hazardous effects, ultimately ending the life of the person. So that will be a primary action of that aconite on the human being if you give it in a material doses. The same is true for the rustox. Rustox is the most poisonous plant. The name of the common name of the rustox is poison oak. Its name itself is a poison. So poison oak, it is called as a poison oak because it directly, if you go just nearby the rustox plant, you get the rashes on your body. It is so strong in its action that by touch itself, it produces the poisonous effect. And when consumed in the material form, it definitely affects the whole human body, different systems, ultimately can end the life of the person. So in material doses, when it acts, it produces its primary action. There are many poisons which are included in our materia medica, but we never give them in material or large doses. We have the naxomica, another poison. How naxomica acts? It acts in material doses in the similar manner, and it used to produce directly effect on the heart, effect on the brain, ultimately ending the life of the person in material doses. So these are the things which are called to be a primary effects of the drug substances because you are giving in larger doses. But same naxomica, if you give in 30 potency, that means you are given it in dynamic form. We have learned on that day that the Avogadro's hypothesis that any drug substance more than 12C potency or 24x potency doesn't carry original material substance in that medicine. So in 12C potency or in 24x potency, if there is no material substance present, so definitely it becomes dynamic. And as it becomes dynamic, there is no capacity to produce directly a primary action over there to produce effects directly on the human body. And those hazardous effects never happens. So person never gets suffered with the primary action of the medicine as he used to get suffered when given in larger doses. And that's why homeopathic medicines, when we prove, should be proved in the potentized form so that we get totally a subjective data and which is very specific to that specific drug stimulus, and we get ample data, the functional data from the patient for the proving. So today we have finished right from the aphorism number 111 to 114, 5 aphorisms, 4 aphorisms we have finished. Tomorrow we'll continue with the next few, where he explains many conditions, where he has explained what do you mean by idiosyncrasies, who are the best provers, how one can go ahead with the proving, what are different alternating actions of medicines, all those things which you can get over there. So that's all things which we have to go on learning in next lecture. Today we'll conclude over here. There is one question, sir. In a case of PCD, if we get phosphorus as our totality, then can we prescribe it in LM potency? Because phosphorus is not safe to repeat, like it maybe produces hemorrhages. So I got this doubt. Is it necessary to give it in LM potency? Question is that why you are prescribing phosphorus, on what totality you are prescribing. If you want result more at a deeper plane, at the level of ovaries, your remedy, if you want to give phosphorus, you have selected it as a totality. Instead of going for LM, you can go directly with the centesimal also. That is first answer. Second important thing, it will not going to act directly and produce a bleeding, even though given in LM. Only thing is that how much to repeat. If the patient, in cases of polycystic ovarian disease, it is not an emergency where the susceptibility is not too high and not too low, it is a moderate. And in such types of moderate susceptibility levels, there is no need to repeat the medicine so much. You can go for centesimal, start with low centesimal and gradually increase in centesimal. No need to go for LM potency generally, unless a pathology is indicating, and that pathology with a low susceptible states, then definitely you will require it in LM potency. But in cases of PCOD, the person is young enough, generally, never requires it in the LM. So that is my answer regarding this. Any other query? Any doubt?
Hello, sir.
Huh?
Sir, in remedy relationship charts in Boric, there are some remedies which has action of 7 to 21 days or like that. And in acute cases, if totality matches and if we find state is still same, can we repeat that remedy?
We can repeat, no doubt, if the state remains, but then you must think that if it is not working in earlier potency properly, you have to go little bit high. If you would have used the 30, instead of 30, you go for 200. You can go for a high if the state is same. Definitely you can. If it is not showing any reaction, you can go for high.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Anything else? Any query? So we'll stop. We'll conclude our today's session. Tomorrow we'll continue with the same. Thank you very much. And those, I will send the details about the Sunday seminar. I have been called called by Delhi and Pune Homeopathic Medical Association, a joint program. For the seminar, it is on Sunday, 12th of this month at 9 o'clock at night, the cholelithiasis and homeopathic management. Those who want to join that, I will send you the link as well as details. It is just nominal fees are there, 100 rupees for the session. So you can directly contact them and get enrolled for that. It is on 12th at night, 9 o'clock. So it is the Delhi Homeopathic Medical Association and Pune Homeopathic Medical Association. Both of them are conducting this unique program. So I will send it on our group, the details about it. Okay. So thank you being there and we'll meet tomorrow. Thanks a lot.